Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are making a video talking all things Mandalorian because I really wanted to give a tribute to this series because it is the best thing that has come out of modern day Star Wars, and there's hardly any competition other than Tales of the Jedi, which I've talked about, but you know, this show has been the only thing to remind me that Disney has the potential to make good Star Wars, and it's the only reason why I keep watching, because I know they can do it, they just don't, and that's the one thing that has made me keep hope. If I didn't have The Mandalorian, I don't think I'd be watching modern Star Wars anymore. Which in a certain point of view is a good thing, because I wouldn't be supporting it, and in another point of view, it's a, bad thing that I, just check out, and that's not great, because then, I'd be smack talking without evidence, and that's like a whole thing. But, yeah, so I'm really thankful for it. Not just for that, it's just such a beautifully done show, like really, and not enough people give it credit for that, and they say how, oh, it's a shallow story, it's this and that, oh my gosh, it's so shallow, Din Djarin's so shallow, he's just a lame version of Boba Fett. I hear all this crap all the time. And then there's the other side that's like, oh my gosh, Grogu is the best character in the world. Oh, who cares about it being the Mandalorian? Let's make it all about the Grogu. Blah, 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 blah. And I just want to toss both of those things aside and just really praise the show for how great it is and how the plot is complex. And again, it's like, Star Wars, George's Star Wars, the real Star Wars, where you have to look deeper into the story and read between the lines to see the real plot. And that's something George did because he wanted to keep it fast-paced and entertaining, but at the same time he wanted to make a meaningful story, so he had to meld the two together really well in order to do it, and that's exactly what Mando does. It does the exact same thing. And from season 1 to season 2, it just, every moment is just beautifully crafted, and you could tell they put time into it and they put effort into it, and how they kind of melded the visual effects of the prequels and the visual effects of the originals right together and made the best kind of rendition of Star Wars visual effects we've had, where you have some of that physical stuff as a callback to the originals, and then you have the digital stuff which objectively looks more real and looks, for like creatures and big explosions and all of that, the visual effects, the digital ones, look much better. And for certain creatures that are just too much to do physical, again, just makes it look so much better. So they balance each other. So that's another thing. The effects were just so insanely good. Like, I don't even understand how it's just so well done. And that's the magic of ILM, is they always give it their all, always. They never ever slack. And that's one thing out of Disney Star Wars, is kind of like the music is. However horrible the story or directing is, you always have really good effects, and you always have really good music for the most part. Those are the two things that have remained constant, and they're not evolving at the rate George would evolve them, but obviously he's the only one who can do that, so obviously that's not gonna happen. But the effects, they're still you could see they just get better, but it's not this ridiculous evolution in between movies like George would do. He was something else with, pioneering the visual effects industry. Like, holy crap. and the film industry in general. But yeah, those effects in Mando are amazing. And the music, dude, radically different from typical Star Wars scores, radically different from John Williams. So different, you know, but it worked. And that is what proved to me you don't need to just do an orchestra for Star Wars. My personal preference is an orchestra. If I made a Star Wars movie, I'd use the orchestra, but you don't need to. It's not going to ruin it if you don't. You just have to do it well, and it has to serve a purpose. So, what did Ludwig do? He decided, they hired Ludwig because the Mandalorians, they're like these tribal survivors who, have been almost completely wiped out, and they're still, some of them are still pushing through, which is kind of reminiscent of, what happened with the Native Americans in the U.S., back in the 1800s, and how there are, even now, still, obviously, there's some left, they don't have the areas of land they had at all. They're very reduced and poor, but they still exist and they still survive. So it's that same kind of idea, which I think is really, really cool that they did that, as a history, person myself, I was like, okay, I see the parallels, and I thought that was sick. But anyways, my point being is you need all these different kinds of instruments that wouldn't fit with the orchestra very well. And that's something you'll notice if you listen to the score, is there's a lot of very unique instruments that would just kind of off balance the overall, set arrangements for the orchestra. It just would sound off and really random and distracting. So they knew that wouldn't work. So they hired Ludwig because he did Black Panther, and that's where, that's how they found him, is because he did that for Marvel. He did the totally different kind of score where it was all authentic cultural African music and instruments, but with Black Panther it was blended with an orchestra, but for the most part it was all, real African instruments. So Star Wars saw that and they were like, well, we definitely need to use him because he'd be perfect for this project because it's the same kind of deal, and they did. So you have the tribal feel of the Mandalorian, whenever he walks in the room, is on the, I think, flute thing. I don't know what it's called exactly. And it's just so iconic, and it's the Mandalorian, exactly. There's no question, so the fact that they made another instantly recognizable piece of Star Wars music is amazing. And it's not just instantly recognizable by fans, but by casuals and by just show viewers who don't even care about Star Wars. They know when they hear that song, even the first two notes, you're like, oh, this is the Mandalorian. And that hasn't happened since John Williams. Really, it hasn't. There's no other Star Wars score where you're like, ooh, I know that instantly from the first note. No, no, you don't. That's a John Williams exclusive, and Ludwig did it. Because, again, it matches the story, it perfectly fits the show, it just makes sense. And how when it starts out, it's just that one flute. Because when the Mandalorian starts out, it's just the one Mandalorian. And that's how it feels. And then it grows into this big adventurous theme, and it feels like you're exploring the galaxy, and, it just gets really big and loud because now we're diving outside of, Mando's isolation, and more into his, job and profession, which is going through this beautiful, I guess, galaxy and having to, go on all these adventures, And then you get these hints of the Rocky theme in there too, which I thought was really cool. But if you listen to the Rocky music and then you listen to Mando, there's a similarity. That whole thing, like, I think that was intentional. And you had Carl Weathers, he was involved, at least in the cast, so I don't know if it was a coincidence, but I felt like that made sense. And again, who's Rocky Balboa? He's a survivor. Who's Mando? A survivor. Connections. And this is all just in that one piece, The Mandalorian by Ludwig Göransson. And it's just perfectly rounded in every way. It's just so well done. So the score, and it has the electronic parts to it too, where there's like these crazy, electronic beats, the like all of that, and like the dubstep and all of that, and that, I guess, to me has always represented the kind of the Empire and the modern, I guess, elements of the galaxy, is when they use the electronic beats. For example, season 2, when Luke Skywalker shows up, you get this really voice of the Force feel, because to me, the music in the 6 movies, they're, to me, always have been kind of the voice of the Force. Like, that's the Force talking. And to me, yeah, it's the music. Like, that's the Force you see. In the dark moments, it gets dark. In the light, it gets light. And when it's in between, you see the light and dark fighting. So to me, that's always been kind of the feel. But in Mando, when Luke shows up, you get this really peaceful, right? And that kind of lasts for a while. And it's this very smooth, like, peaceful theme. And then it gets really heroic. And it gets, you get the brass in there, right, to help add that sense of heroism, which they use in a lot of things. The brass is kind of what makes it, strong and courageous and heroic. And then the strings have the drama and the, tone, and it balances out. Then you go to the Dark Troopers, and it's just it's this very mechanical, very electronic, just, I guess, scary dubstep rendition, that Ludwig made to represent the Empire and how it's all factory and there's no heart to the Empire, right? And all of that. And plus, they're robots too, so droids. Ridiculous. That was ridiculous. I'm sorry. That was so ridiculous. At least George says the robots, so my bad, but that was really dumb. But droids, the droids, and you hear the dubstep, because they're electronic, they have no heart, they're just programmed mechanical beings. And then they clash, as Luke and the Dark Troopers clash. This is how you compose music, people. I don't know how they do it. It's so hard, I just don't even understand how composers do their thing. But I see the vision, and how there's this just badass part of that song. It's called A Friend. So Luke's going up the elevator and it's building. It's like, I forgot exactly how it goes, but it's just building and building in intensity, and you feel like, Luke's just gonna run in here, he's gonna throw the whole building, chop them all into a million pieces, and then it reaches the peak and it goes, na, na, na. Right? And it's this very smooth, peaceful thing again. Which you think when it goes up, 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 you think that it's gonna go even louder when Luke shows up. It's gonna be like this big brass thing and bum, 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 right? And you think it's gonna go into this massive, crazy, aggressive piece as Luke goes in and destroys him. But no, it drops into a very safe, peaceful feeling, I guess, which is unique, and I've never seen that before, you know, and how they kind of flow into Luke's theme in Mando, while he takes out all the dark troopers. And then obviously once he pulls his hood off, the Force theme plays, because they had to do that, because he's Luke. And you know, the Star Wars main theme is Luke's theme, if you didn't know. People are like, Luke Skywalker doesn't even have a theme song, and the first time he had a theme song with the Mandalorian. No. When Luke runs up out of the, you know, homestead for the first time, what do we hear? Na 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 na. Right? That is Luke's theme, guys. Like, it's there. Like, literally, he is the main character, but he's, you know, Vader's the main character of Star Wars, but, you know, Anakin Vader, but still. The whole theme of Star Wars revolves around Luke. Like, that is literally, from day one, been Luke's theme. It's just a different rendition. You know, it's much more peaceful, much calmer, has a sense of hope to it. So that's some knowledge for you guys who don't understand that the Star Wars main theme is really Luke's theme, guys. He has a theme. It is just all over the movie. So that's why there's not a specific song, because it is everywhere, you know? And then the Force theme is a rendition of the main theme. Is it? Kind of. It's a stretch, but like there's similarities, you know, in notes and stuff. Okay, I guess not. They just sound similar, but it's done on purpose because we hear it when Luke looks out to the sunsets, right? And that was supposed to be just a really dramatic, I guess, theme for Luke in that moment, but it ended up kind of becoming the theme for the Force, because that's really when his fate was decided, and he was like, this isn't it for me, you know, I have more out there, and this life I have on this farm isn't it. And that theme plays. So there you go. There's just a fun music lesson that I hope made sense to you. Yeah, but music in Mando is 10 out of 10. I love it. Every piece, dude, it's like you hear hints of John Williams sprinkled throughout at the perfect moments, you know, but then you have Ludwig's themes the whole time, you know. So it's really cool, you know. He's amazing, you know. And I wouldn't want purely Ludwig Star Wars music, because it's very specific, you know. It's very much for The Mandalorian. I wouldn't say it's for all of Star Wars, so I'm not gonna say he's the next John Williams. No, you know. But is he great for Mando, and is he the best for Mando? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, music's great, and the character of Din Djarin is one of my favorites in all of Star Wars. This is the next thing we're getting into, because there's this layer of humanity and complexity to this character that I had not seen in a Mandalorian character before. You know, like, they're just always cold-hearted and you know, so stiff, and, you know, like, they're just military guys, because that's really how they were raised. They were, you know, army soldiers from day one, and they never had, you know, a heart really formed, so they had to learn how to navigate that. You know, the ones born into the Mandalorian tribes. But then you have Din, and he had a life for 8 or 10 years before he was a Mandalorian. So he knew what it was like to live a normal life and to have a normal family that wasn't all, you know, warriors. So he went from that life to having it all stripped from him and seeing his parents get what looked like obliterated from a rocket because they closed the doors in the underground thing, the storage bunker, and then you see this whoosh. So I think that was his parents. Who knows? Maybe not, but I think it was. But yeah, so then he goes from that to seeing these metal warriors he's never seen before, right? He's like, what the heck? What are these guys, right? Like how some of the old fans were in the 80s when they saw Boba for the first time. Same thing, but Din's experiencing it, but they save him. So then he gets that connection. And then he's flying through the sky, and, with one of these guys on a jetpack. Like, what the heck? And then he goes to their own planet, and he trains with them, and then they get wiped out, and now he's alone again. Right? It's like he's been through change and trauma his entire life. And now, by the point we meet him in the first episode, tracking down the Mythrol, he's just broken. He's lost. Lost in his heart, not in his mind. That's the difference. In his mind, he's like, bounties were his therapy, because he's like, that's the only thing that I felt like gave him a purpose at that time. That's the only thing he felt like he had purpose for, was getting these bounties, and he's like, well, I get money too. So he just really had no security or peace in his life. He was just, everything was just go, and he never had anything really pushing him. There's no guiding force. He had no one, or nothing, no ideas, or nothing. Like, he just went after bounties his whole life and would go to the Mandalorians to get more armor, and that was it. He never really connected in with any of them, other than maybe the armor a little bit, but still, he was like never around. He just was very broken, very lost, and but at the same time very strong. And you could see that he knew his stuff, and he knew what he was doing, and he had experience, right? So and he always traveled alone, and he never had allies traveling with him, because all the Mandalorians had to hide, and he was really the only one out of the whole group that would go out. And that's why they didn't like him, because they were like, you're risking our existence, and then Din is like, this is BS, I'm not just gonna sit back and hide for my entire life, until we have the right moment to strike, and until, all of our opponents just magically disappear. It's like, screw that. And he goes every day. That's why they don't like him. I don't know if you realize that, but it's the truth. Like, they really didn't like him because he was so free-willed, and there was nothing holding him back. He had nothing to lose, right? So he's like, I don't care, I'm just gonna go. And that's why he was the Mandalorian. That's why everyone called him the Mandalorian, or Mando, because he was the only one out. Like, the galaxy had no idea that they even still existed. So Mando has this very special feel to him, too, and a lot of, I guess, pressure from the Bounty Hunters Guild and kind of from the galaxy to live up to the Mandalorian name, and to be this powerful warrior who could take down Jedi, right? Like, he had a lot to kind of bear. And he used that by being aggressive and nailing bounties, and never, just mission after mission, and never really having a purpose in his life other than mission after mission after mission. And then he comes upon Grogu, and I guess feels like this child, he saw himself in this child. He's like, well, I can't just kill this kid. This is me. This was me when I got rescued, and now I have to do the same thing. So he shoots IG-11, because he's like, you are not killing this kid. And what does he do? The exact same thing that the Death Watch did to save him. He kills the droid to save the child. Exact same thing. What happens in the flashback? The battle droid raises his, the B2 super battle droid, aims his arm down, he's about to blast Din. What happens? The Mandalorians blast him, and then save Din. Same thing. Now it's Din. Din is the Mandalorian, and he kills the droid, who's IG-11, and saves the child. Exact same thing. So I thought that was a really cool parallel, and how that was really the start of his, I guess, motive in life, was to get this kid back to his people, and how that would help him feel better about himself, and that he's not just some mercenary killing for money, and it showed that he really just wants the best for people, and he doesn't want anyone to have to go through what he went through, and that's amazing. And throughout that, we learn so much about him and how he acts, and how he's so strong in his beliefs, and how he doesn't let anyone try to convince him out of being a Mandalorian, and staying true to his religion, and not letting people shake it. And that's something that I look up to a lot, is to not let people try to nudge you around for your beliefs. That's Mando is very strong in his beliefs, and he doesn't let anyone push him around. He's like, no, I'm not gonna take my helmet off, that's just not gonna happen. But then at the same time, he did once, because he felt that this was the last time he's going to see Grogu, so he had to take his helmet off. But that was a really, I guess, sad moment for him, because he had really been the one to raise and help raise Grogu, right? And make him, guide him to his people. And they built a connection, the father-son relationship. And then they were split apart, and that was tough for Mando, and he felt he had to, show his face for Grogu, but that's a different thing. I guess Grogu was really raised by the Jedi, but he, there's a lot of mystery to his origin. Because we don't know what happened after Kelleran rescued him. We have no clue what the heck went on. But yeah, that alone, his purpose, I think is just preserving the legacy of those who saved him. I think that's his mission, throughout the whole show, is to be that Mandalorian who saved him. He wants to be that hero. That's really what I see. And that's, again, I'm able to connect with that a lot, because that's me, that's my mission, is to preserve the, legacies of those who came before me, like George, and many other people who've inspired me. I want to keep their legacy alive, because it's better for the world, and then obviously, first and foremost, my religion, is I want to keep, the ideas and beliefs of Jesus alive, and I do. I try to, everywhere I go, I try to, not scream it in people's faces, but I act a certain way. I'm calm, I'm kind, and that shows, I guess, to people that, he is real, he does help you, he does bring peace to your soul. So I was really able to connect with Mando and his mission too. But then at the same time, I'm not gonna let someone, beat me up or talk trash on me all the time, continuously. I will put my fist down at some point, you know? And again, that's what Mando does. He doesn't let anyone tread all over him, and I am the same way, you know? You don't get to just, you know, poke at me all the time. That doesn't work. I'm not okay with that. I know people who are, and they're miserable, so... Yeah, and then their whole mission in life is to completely wipe away the person that they were to become someone new who isn't themselves. And they end up becoming a disaster who hates themselves because they're not their true self. And it's this whole thing, you know? So Mando to me is always, I felt like I could see myself in him, you know? And I'm able to see myself in parts of myself in a variety of Star Wars characters. Like, I'm able to see myself in Luke, you know? I'm able to see some of myself in Anakin. I'm able to see some of myself in Han, you know? I'm able to see, you know, a lot of myself in Din. You know, I really have been. And it's been a weird, just such a strange connection that I've had with that character. And I've taken, you know, I've took some personality test for school, and I forgot exactly what type I am. Who cares? Doesn't matter. But my point being is, I get this results now. I'm like, ooh, which Star Wars character is gonna have the same, you know, type as me or whatever? So then I look around, and Din is the first one who pops up. And I've known from day one that I have had some weird connection with that character, and that this sense of like familiarity in the way he acts and how I do the exact same thing. It's like this just weirdness, you know, that I was like, what the heck is going on? And then that happened, and I was like, oh, we are similar. You know, it does make sense. And yeah, that was just so cool, dude, is seeing that, and helps, you know, further my connection with Din, too. So, personally, that character has really, you know, again, been one of those people to help me, I guess, give me strength in times where I'm alone, and when there is no allies around me, you know, when I'm walking in enemy territory. You know, I always just imagine, like, Din's done this, you know, you just walk in there, you get the business done, and you get out, right? And you don't let anyone tread all over you. So I use that, and it works, you know? And without him, I don't know, I'd probably just be scared and confused and not know what to do, you know? But Din has shown me what to do, and he's been someone that I look up to. And again, there's a lot of people I look up to. And that's the magic of, you know, Star Wars, is that there's so many characters that you're able to relate to in ways, you know, not all the way, but there are elements, you know, and that's what's amazing is, you know, sometimes you need to be more like Han and kind of be slick and witty to get out of a situation. And in other ways, you have to be more like Mando. And then in other ways, you know, you should be like Luke. And you should be, you know, well, you just should. It's like, that's one thing where I just am Luke in a lot of ways. It's, again, very weird, kind of like the Din thing. But, I don't know, it's just such a... When you write a character well, your audience should be able to look up to them or relate to them in some way. That's how you know you've made a good character. And it helps your audience connect with the character more if they're able to relate with him, obviously, or her. But yeah, you know, like Luke, again, dude, so freakishly many scenarios. Not even, you know, because I'm not as chippery as Luke. I'm not. I'm going to be honest. I am not that, you know, chippery about everything. You know, I'm more like Mando with how I handle you know, life situations. But in terms of my situation, like, it's just like Luke in A New Hope, obviously not on Tatooine, or none of that. And I have my parents. But the whole thing about, if there's a bright center to the universe, then you're on the planet that it's farthest from. That's me. That's how I feel right now. And the things that I'm, kind of forced and pressured to do by my guardians, which are my parents, but for Luke, where his aunt and uncle, are things that I know aren't for me and that aren't guiding me to my path. And I know what I need to do, to go where I need to go, but they want me to go a different direction, right? So I have that exact same deal, and how, I kind of have to adjust around them, and it's upsetting, and it's like, I don't know. There's just scenarios where I'm like, dude, this is a waste. Like, I should be doing this instead. And they're like, well, you have to do this, right? And it's like, then you have to adjust and figure out, okay, well, how can I do that on my own? And then how do I learn this on my own? How do I squeeze time into my day? It's just like you have to constantly adjust around it, and it's upsetting, and I have my own spot. I have my own, lookout. Just like Luke did when he was looking out to the twin suns, and how that's kind of his spot, I have my spot where I live, that's not in my house, where I kind of just, look off into the future, to the horizon, right? That's totally me too. I have my spot. And constantly seeking, constantly wanting to fulfill your purpose at every given moment. That's me too. And being too, I don't know, there's just so much that I've been able to, connect with Luke, and then also at the same time be able to look up to him, because I want to get to the point of Return of the Jedi Luke. I do. That's like, for me, the ultimate merger of Din and the Luke that I kind of identify with now. Like, Luke Return of the Jedi is like both merged together, and that's like, the personality not personality, but that's the person I want to be, and that's the person that I look up to. And he really is, like, just the way he handles things, and how he is firm when he needs to be firm, but he lets loose when he needs to be let, when he needs to let loose. And it's like you have the perfect merger, and how he's able to control his anger ridiculously well. That's something I want to get to as well. But, like, again, it's crazy. And Din, Luke Skywalker, and I think Anakin and Han, they're less me. But I think I have a bit of that, like, Anakin edge to me, for sure. Like, definitely. And just kind of like, yeah, not the dark side Anakin really, but like the, kind of smart ass, like, I don't know, like episode 2 Anakin. I have that part of me too. So, you have this like merger, and it's really cool to be able to have these characters that you're able to see, what they did right and what they did wrong, and how you learn from them, because you're able to relate to them and see, okay, this is what would happen if I was too cocky or too much of an ass in this situation, right? Like how I look at Anakin. And, this is how, if you're too peppy about everything, and too, the world is amazing, and, it'll be all right about everything, how it turns out. Luke got his hand chopped off. So I'm like, okay, it can't be too much of that. And then in Mando, we see how it is when you refuse to connect with anybody and you're completely alone for your entire life. That's also very bad on your mental health. So you have drawbacks from all these characters, but I saw Mando grow from that. I saw Anakin have to grow from that, and I saw Luke, grow from that, right? So it's so cool to see. And the fact that Din was able to be that influential on me is massive, especially in Disney Star Wars. That's something that, absolutely does not happen. They've been horrible at making interesting new characters. Din is one of the only ones. Like, it's really bad. Like, there's probably 5 characters that they've made that have been good. But, like, that's it. It's like a very low number. Maybe 6, right? If we're including games or whatever. But, like, a lot of the characters they make just don't matter. They're so, like, forgettable, and I don't know, Din just isn't. He's so, iconic to me and so meaningful to myself, as I've explained, and how I'm able to really see myself on screen in certain, scenes and moments, and how special that is to me, and how, it brings a smile to my face when to see, I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold, or, all of his quotes like that, where he's just this badass gunslinger, like that stuff is sick. Or even when he doesn't talk to the Mythrol the whole time, it's like, because he knows, he's like, this guy's gonna try to jettison out of my ship. He knew already, so it's like, fine, you can walk yourself to the carbon freeze chamber. Sure, it spares me some energy. And then he creeps down, freezes him, right? Like, he knows, like, this is the thing, he's not an idiot. Like, he's very smart, he was very sad and beaten, at that point, and Grogu gave him life, right? So, yeah. So he's just cool, too. He's so cool, and he's human at the same time, which is, like, the perfect combination for me with the characters. Have them be badass and have them be human. And when you mix those two together, that's it. It's like Rocky Balboa, too. He's also that way, and, Iron Man's that way, Batman's that way, right? Like, all the characters that I really have loved and connected with, they're, like, similar in some way, where they have, like, that kind of badass feel, but, because I'm like, this is sick watching them kick ass. And then, they have the human parts, too, that show, well, they have problems, too. They're not just perfect and able to win everything, like, they make mistakes. But then I'm able to grow from their mistakes by watching them make mistakes. And that's the power of cinema, when you really do a good job. And with Mando, they did that really well. To me, I felt like they just nailed his character, and how they did that exact thing perfectly, and how he has both sides to him. Or there's this one moment where he jumps down, how in chapter 6, The Prisoner, when they have all the, members of the team just kind of drop down from the ship into the New Republic prison ship, from the Crest to the New Republic prison ship, and how Ludwig does this cool thing where he plays their theme or their motif as they drop down. And then just Mando dropping down and drawing his blaster. It was the coolest thing, and you hear the, like, again, the lone flute, because that's him, and I was like, dude, this is so cool. But yeah, that character just means so much to me, man. He's high up there on my character list. But yeah, he's great. So, that is the biggest part of this video, was the characterization of Din, and seeing his character arc throughout the show is really probably the main reason why I love that show so much. But also the worlds, and how you have all these different planets and cultures and kinds of aliens and kinds of people and organizations, and how all of that blends, just like how it did in George's movies. It just had the Star Wars feel, and how every planet I'm going to is new. It's like I haven't been here before. This isn't like Jakku in Force Awakens where it's Tatooine 2.0. No, you're going to what's it called? Dang it. The what I call it, like the San Francisco Bay planet. What's it called? Trask. That's it. It gives me that vibe when you're on the, if you're on the port you're on the port in San Francisco. It has the same feel to me. I don't know. I just feel that a lot. Where you eat really good crab. You know what I'm talking about. You know the port area I'm talking about. But it just has that feel, So that's what I call it. I'm like, it's the San Francisco, Bay planet. And it's funny because they eat clam chowder, and they eat, you see when they're in the I would think bar or cantina, they're eating like what looks like clam chowder and all the seafood, and I'm like, huh. I really wonder if it was inspired by that area, because it, like, I don't know the exact name of it. I could look it up. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's so weirdly familiar to me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's San Francisco, in Star Wars land, which is really cool. Yeah, but that's really cool too. It's like, oh, we haven't seen this before, and then you go to, Navarro. You're like, oh, I haven't seen this before. Then you go to, what's it called? Sorgan. Yeah, I haven't seen this before. Then season 2, season 2 has Trask. But there's the Ice Spider planet. That doesn't feel like Hoth at all. It feels like a totally new, environment. And then there's the planet in Chapter 15, The Believer. Again, really cool. We've never seen that kind of planet before. And we've never seen that species and culture of people before, right? And it's just this cool thing they do where every planet, it's so magical, and it does feel like, it felt like, it's real Star Wars to me, and how it felt like when you were, exploring the Star Wars universe in Clone Wars with all the different arcs on all these new planets and all these new, towns and creatures in the towns. It had that same feel, in the feel of exploration and adventure, which is built into Star Wars at its core from day one, and Mando has that, and it doesn't die off, and that's great. And season 3 is the only time that faded off, but season 3 to me isn't, season 3 is not Mando. It just isn't. It's not what it was. It just was such a disaster, and I know that it was forced by Disney too, and that John wasn't ready, and he didn't finish all of his stuff in time, and Kathy was basically like, well, we need to get it out by this date, and rushed the crap out of him. So that's not a good representation of John or Dave, and it's not totally their fault. It's Kathy and Disney, it's studio interference, basically. That's why Mando season 3 was such a mess. But that doesn't matter, really. The first 2 seasons positives heavily outweigh the season 3 negatives to me. Like, it's just, that doesn't affect the way I view Mando at all. It's just like kind of this moment, like, who cares? Season 3, I wish I didn't have to do that with season 3, but it's not like destroying Mando right? Like, no, it's fine. They did sideline him with Bo-Katan, and that was stupid, but they didn't wreck his character, so, I was fine. I was like, okay, well, Mando and Grogu will be only Din and Grogu. Hallelujah. We get the real Mando adventures on a big screen, so I'm floored about Mando and Grogu. I'm super excited. That'll be sick. And it's directed by Jon Favreau and written by Jon and Dave. Like, this is gonna be just like season 1 and 2. I hope it is. But knowing that none of that other crap is involved, like it's just Mando and Grogu going throughout the galaxy in IMAX, like, come on. This is gonna be so nice. It's just what we need. Really, I'm so excited for that. And I think when the trailer releases, we'll get a better understanding of what it's going to be like, which I think they'll have at Celebration. That's my guess, because they're shooting right now, and I'm sure they'll put together a very short teaser for Celebration. I would not be surprised at all. I really think that's going to happen. It's going to be really short, but I think it'll be there. I do. I think that they'll have something to show us, and that'll give us a better indication of, what it's going to be about and what it's going to be like, and that'll be, I could probably tell from there, because I'm able to tell very early now if a project's going to be good or not. Like Outlaws, I knew very early on it was gonna suck. So, and it's turning out to be true so far. And it looks like garbage, and it plays like garbage, and it's filled with garbage. Yeah, so that's one thing. But yeah, Mando, the planet thing is huge, and the scale for being on the volume set is very big. Like, genuinely. Which is weird, because it's on the volume set, but it feels big. And that's really the only thing that's been shot on the volume set fully that I felt it still has somewhat of a scale to it, especially in season 2, and the scenes with Ahsoka and Mando fighting together, and that whole episode just felt huge, in the big forest, but it's all on the volume. It's just such a cool innovation. Now, I wouldn't want, again, everything to be shot on the volume, because it definitely has a detraction of scale, because, you're filming everything in this room, but you could do it well, and you could make it work, but I'd love to see a good Mando project shot hybrid, like how Ahsoka was shot, or, like that, where Ahsoka's scale was monstrous, like cinematic level scale, like just huge, so huge for TV. There is no TV show that will have that kind of scale that you'll see. That's live action. That's just not a thing. The scale of that show is just huge. I don't know how they did it, but they refused to release a behind the scenes of that show, which is sketchy, and I wonder why. What kind of secrets are they hiding from us? But yeah, Mando's scale is fine. I don't have a problem with it. It's pretty big, so that's great. And the story flows perfectly, and how season 1 and all the different episodes that might be filler to critics, they're not, and they add to the story, and they help develop Din and help further, the whole plot with the Bounty Hunters Guild, and, further Din and Grogu's connection, like they serve a purpose. And how the episode 4 of season 1 really was big for Mando's character, especially. And then same with Episode 5 and Episode 6, they were also really huge for Mando's, development and stuff. And then we got back to the Empire story, in Episode 7, where all of these plots that submerged combined back together and flattened into one overarching plot, which is how you do it. That's what George did too, and all his movies. It's just, instead of in episodes, it's in 2 hours, so it's much quicker, but it happens the same way. You have Empire, for example, Leia, Han, 3PO, all of them, on their mission. You have the Empire, and you have Luke and Yoda and R2. And then, they're all happening at the same time. And then sometimes they submerge, but then all of the sudden at the end of the movie, all of those plot points connect and flatten. So it's perfect. That's how you do a plot. It's that nice stitch, right? So Mando, again, has that with both seasons. But even in season 2, it's even more of a concise plot, because every episode is furthering to, getting Grogu back to the Jedi. With every episode, it just goes from more leads to more leads to more leads to more leads, right? Until they get to Luke. Well, till Luke gets to them, really. Yeah, so that show is amazing. I love The Mandalorian. It's one of the two only good products that have come out of Disney. It really, Mando, Tales of the Jedi, that is it. And you guys know that. Like, that's the only 2 things that I am fully, just enthralled with out of Disney's era. Those 2 things, and that's it. And Fallen Order and Survivor are great too. So I don't know if they're quite there. I don't think so, but yeah, that's it. Till the next time, your focus determines your reality, and may the Force be with you always.